Hi, welcome to the MathSocial Math channel. We are going to practice turning equations into slope-intercept form. When equations are in slope-intercept form, they're really easy for us to graph them. So let's get started. Just as a reminder, this is slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. Y is going to have a y, then we're going to have the equal sign. M is going to be a number, that is our slope. Then we're going to have an x, and then we're going to have plus or minus another number. And that is our y-intercept. Okay, let's do the first problem. Here is our first problem, x plus y equals -5. And our goal is to get y by itself on the left-hand side and then everything else on the right. So if we want to get y by itself, all we need to do is get rid of x. And x is being added to y, so to undo that, we would want to subtract x. And whatever we do on one side of the equal sign, we have to do on the other side of the equal sign because we want to keep our equation equal on both sides. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract x over here and subtract x over here. Now on this side, it's going to cancel, and I'm going to be left with y, which is my goal. The first part of our equation says y equals, and now I have that, y equals. Okay, now I have -5 minus 6, and we cannot combine those two things because they aren't like terms. This one has an x, and this one doesn't. That one's just a regular number, so we won't be able to combine them. I am also going to write the -x first, because if you look at our equation, the x comes first before the other number. So I'm going to write -x minus 5. Now, it kind of looks like there's not a number in front of the x. There's just a negative sign, and that just means -1, okay? So I could write a 1 there, and it would mean the same thing. And then our y-intercept would be -5. So if I wanted to graph this, I would start off at -5 down here on my y-axis, and then my slope being -1, I would go down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, and my line would look something like that. Let's do another one. Here is my second equation, 4x plus y equals 4. And again, I want to get my y by itself because it's all by itself in slope-intercept form. So this one's similar to the last problem, and I am going to get rid of this 4x, and whatever I do on this side of the equal sign, I also need to do that on this side of the equal sign. These ones over here are going to cancel, and I'll be left with just y, which is my goal. Okay, so now I want the one with the x to go first, which is this one. So if I'm going to combine these, I really can't do that because they are not like terms. This one has an x and this one doesn't. So I'm just going to choose to write this one first because that's what goes first in our equation. And then this is a +4, so it's going to look like this. So here's our equation in slope-intercept form. If I were to graph this, I would start up at 4 on the y-axis, so up here, and then my slope is a -4. So I would go down 4 over 1, down 4 over 1, and that line would look something like that. Let's keep going. Here we have x plus 2y equals 4. And again, I want to get the y by itself. And I'm going to have to get rid of this 2, and I'm going to have to get rid of that x. So when I'm solving equations, I want to get rid of whatever is further away from my y first. I am going to get rid of this x by subtracting x. And I'm going to have to do that to both sides because I want to keep my equation equal. Okay, these will cancel over here, and I'll be left with 2y equals. And then I'm going to write the -x first because that's what comes first in our equation, and then I still have the +4. Okay, my equation is almost in slope-intercept form. I just have to get rid of this 2. And if you look at it, when a number is right by a variable, that implies that they're being multiplied together. So the opposite, or to undo multiplication, is division. So I'm going to divide this by 2, but I need to keep these equal. So whatever I do on this side, I have to do it on this side. So I'm going to divide this whole thing by 2. These will cancel, and I am going to get y equals, now, the y is by itself, which is what I wanted. Another way of writing divided by 2 with each of these terms is to write it like this. Divide by 2, divide by 2. And that means the same thing. I'm just taking each of the things on the right-hand side and I'm dividing it by 2. Okay, so now you remember from last time, we got to remember that there's a -1 up here. So another way to write this would just be -1/2 x. I just don't want to write the x up there. I want to write it outside here because that means the same thing. And then here we have plus, and then 4 divided by 2 is going to give me 2. Okay, so if I were to graph this equation, I would have my y-intercept up to 2 right here, and then my slope is -1/2. So I'd go down 1 over 2, down 1 over 2, and my line would look something like that. Okay, we're just going to do a couple more. You can do this. Here we have x minus y equals -5. So again, I just want to get my y by itself, so I want to get rid of this x by subtracting x. Whatever I do to that side of the equal sign, I have to do to this side. These will cancel. Now, a lot of times people just bring down the y, but you can't forget about this negative sign. That is kind of attached there, okay? And then I'm going to have equals, and then I'm going to write this term first because it comes first in our equation. And remember, you can't combine these because this one has a variable and this one does not. So I'm going to write minus x minus 5. Those are both negatives. Now here, remember, when you do not show a number right by the variable, that is always implied that it is 1. So -y is the same as a -1y. So that -1 is being multiplied by that y. So I'm going to divide this by -1 because our equation in slope-intercept form does not say -y equals. It just says y equals. So if I divide this side by -1, I'm going to divide each of the terms over here by -1. These will cancel, and I will get, well, negative divided by negative is going to give me a positive. And remember, there's a 1 right out here. And 1 divided by 1 is just 1. So we could write 1x, but I'm just going to write 1 positive x like that because it means the same thing. And then over here, a -5 divided by a -1 is going to give me a positive 5. Remember, a negative divided by a negative is a positive, okay? So if I were to graph this, I would start up on the y-axis of 5, and then a positive 1 slope. I would go up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, and my line would look like that. If you're having trouble following when I'm graphing it so quickly, I made another video about graphing equations in slope-intercept form, so feel free to watch that. We are going to do one last problem. Okay, so we want to change this equation to be in slope-intercept form. So just like the last problems, we want to get y by itself. So I'm going to have to get rid of this, and I'm going to have to get rid of that 7x. The first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the 7x. It's further away from the y. So I'm going to subtract 7x, subtract 7x. These ones will cancel, and I'll be left with -5y. Don't forget that negative sign, equals. And remember, these can't combine, but I'm going to choose to write the -7x first because that's what comes first in our slope-intercept equation, okay? And then minus 20. Okay, I just need to get rid of this -5, and that is being multiplied by the y because they're right next to each other. So I'm going to divide by -5, and I'm going to divide everything here by -5 also because I need to keep them equal. These will cancel, and I will have y equals, well, negative divided by negative, remember, is a positive, and 7 divided by 5 is 7/5. And then we still have our x, okay? And then a negative 20 divided by a negative 5 is going to give us positive 4. So if we were to graph this, I would start up at positive 4 right here, and then I would go up 7 to the right 5, up 7 to the right 5, up 7 to the right 5. And our line would look something like that. Okay, I hope that helped you. If you need any more practice turning standard equations into slope-intercept form, just let me know. I'd be happy to keep helping you with these. But other than that, have a great rest of your day. See ya!